Psychic powers are not essential. The householder Kevada once went to the Buddha and asked him to perform a miracle. Lord, this city of Nalanda is rich, prosperous, populous, and full of people who have faith in the Blessed One. It would be well if the Lord were to request some monk to perform a superhuman miracle. In this way, the citizens of Nalanda would come to have even more faith, would come to have boundless faith in the Blessed One. The Buddha replied, Kevada, this is not the way I teach the Dhamma to the monks, by saying, go monks and perform superhuman feats for the white-clothed lay people. The Buddha goes on to say that of the three kinds of miracles, he disfavors psychic powers and mind reading because he sees their potential harm. When hearing about these things, those who believe in their validity become further convinced, while those who are skeptical deny their validity. They may claim that a monk who performs these feats has resorted to using a magical charm, Gandhari, a mind-reading charm, Manika, or some other trick. This disparity of opinion is followed by arguments and disagreements. The Buddha then explains the meaning and value of the miracle of instruction, saying that it can be applied and its benefits realized by everyone until one reaches a knowledge of the destruction of the taints, which is the goal of Buddhism. He gave an example of a monk who was highly skilled in psychic powers and who wanted to know where the four great elements cease without remainder. This monk travelled to the celestial realms in search of an answer to this question, pressing on until he arrived at the Brahma realms. But finally, unable to get an answer, he returned to the human realm in order to ask the Buddha to explain the true nature of the world. This story shows how psychic powers are limited, often ineffective, and not the essence of the Buddhist teachings. On another occasion, the Brahmin Sangarawa mentioned to the Buddha a conversation occurring among the king's courtiers in the palace on the following subject. Formerly there were fewer monks, but there were more who displayed miracles of supernormal power, transcending the human level. But now there are more monks, but fewer who display miracles of supernormal power, transcending the human level. The Buddha replied by explaining the three kinds of miracles. He then asked Sangarawa which one of these three appeals to him as the most excellent and sublime. Sangarawa answered that a knowledge and realization of the miracles of psychic powers and mind reading is restricted to those who perform them. This knowledge cannot be transferred to others. From the outside they appear as having the nature of a magician's trick. Therefore the miracle of instruction is superior and more sublime. The recipients of this instruction can reflect on, apply, and realize these teachings, leading to the end of suffering. The noble psychic powers. Another passage in the Pali Canon describes two kinds of psychic powers. 1. Psychic powers that are not noble. Psychic powers accompanied by mental defilement and acting as a basis for suffering, upadi, i.e., psychic powers as normally understood and discussed earlier. Here, through determined effort, a renunciant attains liberation of the mind, citta vimutti, and performs various supernormal feats, like projecting mind-made images, walking through walls, flying through the air, diving into the earth, or walking on water. 2. Noble psychic powers. Psychic powers free from mental defilement and not acting as a basis for suffering. In this case, a monk exercises self-mastery over his perceptions and is able to control his responses to sense impressions. He can view a repulsive object as not repulsive. For instance, he can look at a person whose face is disfigured and relate to this person with kindness and friendship. And he can view an attractive object as unattractive. For instance, he can see a charming, enticing body as repugnant. Or he can maintain equanimous, relinquishing both the attractive and the repugnant. For example, while reflecting on things in an unbiased way and seeing into their true nature. This passage confirms that psychic powers, as normally understood, the ability to perform amazing and fantastic feats, are neither praised in Buddhism, nor are they the essence of Buddhism. In Buddhism, the highest form of psychic power is the ability to control one's responses to sense impressions and to develop mental self-mastery. This form of power causes no harm to oneself or others. Those who exercise the former kind of psychic powers may not be able to exercise the latter, and they occasionally apply their psychic abilities to indulge their defilements. The latter kind of psychic powers, however, fosters wholesome qualities, eradicates defilement, and keeps the mind from being seduced by greed, hatred, and delusion. The fact that the Buddha established a training rule forbidding monks from revealing psychic powers to lay people also confirms that he did not encourage their use. As stated above, psychic powers are a form of mundane attainment, which enhance the attributes of those who have attained transcendent knowledge, helping them to better perform their activities and assist other human beings. The Buddha referred to someone who is endowed with the 3 kinds of miraculous gifts as a fully accomplished one who has reached the goal, one who is supreme among gods and humans. As stated earlier, however, the miracle of instruction is the principal and constant factor, while the remaining 2 miracles are supplementary. When there is a good reason to perform the miracles of psychic powers and mind reading, they should be applied merely in the early stages, preparing the way for the miracle of instruction. Instruction is the goal and consummation, as will be discussed at more length below. E. Dangers of psychic powers. Psychic powers can be harmful both for people who possess them and for those associating with these people. Unenlightened people who possess these powers may be intoxicated by them. They may become conceited, feeling superior and denigrating others. They may become obsessed with the material gains and honours accruing from such powers. They may become dishonest, or they may use these powers for evil purposes, as in the case of Venerable Devadatta. At least the attachment to or delight in psychic powers prevents a person from realizing higher spiritual qualities and from cleansing the mind from impurities. And because the psychic abilities of unawakened persons are subject to decline, the anxiety around protecting these powers is an obstacle which interferes with wise reflection and the effective application of insight. Psychic powers are thus classified as obstacles to insight meditation, e.d. Pali Bodha, which should be removed or eliminated by one who is developing wisdom. There is a high likelihood that people associating with a person who has psychic powers may also be harmed. The primary danger is that these people will become victims. Someone possessing or pretending to possess psychic powers may boast of these powers in order to seek personal gain. Note that those people who practice correctly and who have aptitude in this area only exercise psychic powers in those circumstances when they deem them appropriate as a channel leading to proper instruction. For if not to offer Dhamma teachings, why would someone display such powers other than to seek personal fame or material gain? It is thus important to remember that psychic powers should always be accompanied by proper instruction. If someone reveals or claims to have psychic powers, without these powers being a bridge leading to the miracle of instruction, their behavior can be considered incorrect. They may have bad or deceitful intentions, they may be seeking personal gain, or they may simply have a deluded understanding of psychic powers. This same principle can be applied in the case of sacred objects or amulets. Someone who uses such objects when relating to people without providing any form of teaching, without leading them to development of wisdom, to an understanding of the truth, and to a gradual freedom from these objects, is practicing incorrectly and leading people in a wrong direction. Even if a person does not fall victim to someone who claims to possess psychic powers, the fascination or preoccupation with these things runs counter to two important Buddhist principles. First, Buddhism teaches the path to liberation. Because psychic powers are not of essential importance to Buddhism, they are not directly related to the goal of Buddhism and do not help people to be free from mental defilement. A fascination with these things tends to be a waste of time and energy, which could be used to practice the Dhamma. Second, those people who associate with someone claiming psychic or sacred powers generally wish for help from supernatural or divine forces, say for good luck or wealth. This behavior is inconsistent with a central tenet of Buddhism, which is a teaching of action, Kamavada, a teaching of activity, Kiriyavada, and a teaching of effort, Vidyavada. Buddhism teaches people to seek results through determined, deliberate action in line with cause and effect. The wish for results through supplication to divine or supernatural forces can lead to inactivity or laziness. It leads to a lack of effort a lack of urgency to undertake necessary tasks or to avoid harm, and it contradicts the principle of heedfulness. If one takes an interest in psychic powers, it is better that one develops these powers oneself, although this still may be a waste of time, because the wish for results from others' powers or from divine forces is a reliance on external things and makes a person more dependent on these things, instead of leading to more independence. This reliance on external things makes a person less grounded and more confused. A person's resourcefulness, inner strength, and self-confidence is diminished. The reliance on external things contradicts another basic principle of Buddhism, which teaches self-reliance, being a refuge unto oneself. Buddhism teaches the path to liberation, which at the end transcends faith and leads to pure wisdom. The path begins with dependence on the wisdom of the teacher, who is a spiritual friend, Kalyana Metta. Eventually one can abandon even this form of dependence and stand on one's own 2 feet without the support from a teacher.